The apartment is quiet in a way that feels wrong. You sit at the kitchen table, and the silence has weight to it, the kind that presses down on your chest when you're alone with facts you can't negotiate with. The sun cuts through the blinds in pale stripes, and you're staring at a checking account balance that reads $843.47. You've checked it 4 times in the last hour. The number doesn't change. Your name is on the lease. Your rent is due in 11 days. The amount is $1,300. You do the math again because somehow the numbers might shift if you just keep rearranging them like a magic trick where reality bends to math instead of math bending to reality. $1,300 minus $843 equals a shortfall of $457. The math has never been kinder, the deficit has never been smaller, but it's still there, still real, still a problem that won't evaporate because you've become very good at ignoring things. The will was read yesterday, or rather, it wasn't read because there was nothing to read. Your parents left no assets, no business, no property, no trusts hidden in some lawyer's filing cabinet. There was a funeral. There were flowers that people brought to a church. There were relatives who made promises about staying in touch. And you knew even then, watching them file toward their cars, that most of those promises had expiration dates measured in weeks. One uncle hugged you longer than seemed normal, squeezed your shoulder, and said something about you being strong. You're not strong. You're scared. But scared people often look composed when they're moving in shock, so the uncle probably went home feeling like he'd done something meaningful. Your parents lived paycheck to paycheck, a fact that shouldn't surprise you, but somehow does anyway. Even now, they worked decent jobs. They weren't reckless. They simply never built anything. Never accumulated anything, never had anything left to pass on when the time came. Heart attack for your father at 58. Your mother followed 6 months later, the kind of thing that doctors call broken heart syndrome in medical journals, like poetry written in clinical language. By the time the funeral bill settled and the apartment lease was officially transferred to your name alone, you had exactly $843.47 in your checking account. This is not the story you were supposed to have. You understand that now, or you're starting to understand it, which is different but important. You were supposed to inherit something. Homes, money, a family business that required you to sign documents and make decisions that impacted generations. You were supposed to receive a call from a lawyer, sit in an office with wood paneling and leather chairs, and learn that you were secure, that the hard part was done, that you could relax. Instead, you're 22 years old in a studio apartment with exposed brick that's beautiful in the way that expensive things are beautiful, and you can't afford it anymore. The fridge hums too loud. There's a leak in the bathroom that you've been meaning to mention to the landlord for 3 weeks, but haven't because you're terrified he'll raise the rent in response, or worse, fix it by raising the rent anyway. Your phone is 3 years old, and the battery dies at 40% charge. Your shoes have holes in the soles. When you stand up, sometimes your vision swims a little, and you're not sure if that's grief or malnutrition or both. What you do know is this: half the country will inherit nothing. You've looked this up because knowledge feels like a tool, and tools feel like control. Statistically, you are the statistical norm. You're standing in the shoes that 50 million other Americans are wearing right now. The inheritance narrative, the quiet country estate, the family business with your name engraved on the door, the trust fund that compounds silently in the background is real for some people. It's just not real for you. The average inheritance for those who receive one is about $50,000. But most people don't get that inheritance until they're in their 50s, when their earning potential is already defined, when compounding has already either done its work or failed to do its work. By then, the inheritance is something to leave to the next generation, not something that rewrites your trajectory. For most people, inheritance is too late and too little to matter. For you, it's zero and never, which somehow feels worse, not because the amount is smaller, but because the possibility was always impossible. You find yourself angry about this for approximately 47 minutes. You sit on your bed and feel rage move through your body like electricity. It's unfair. It's stupid. The system is rigged. Everyone else gets a head start and you get a funeral bill. This thought process feels righteous for a while, feels like clarity. Then you remember that rent is due in 11 days, and anger doesn't pay rent. And you don't have time to resent the unfairness of a system you can't change. You have time only to survive it. This is the moment that most people never talk about, the moment when self-pity becomes a luxury you can't afford. It's not inspirational. There's nothing motivational about it. It's just cold and practical and utterly lonely. You make a choice, not because you've read it in a book or seen it in a movie, but because the math leaves you no alternative. You're going to build everything from nothing. You pull out a notebook, nothing fancy, just a $3 composition book from the drugstore, and you write at the top of the first page, "I built it all." Below that, a number, $2,500,000. It looks insane when you write it down. $2.5 million. That's not the amount that will make you comfortable. That's not the amount that will let you take vacations and buy nice things. That's the amount that, if invested conservatively at 4% annual returns, will generate roughly $100,000 per year in passive income indefinitely. It's the amount that means you never have to work again. It's the amount that means you never have to sit in an apartment and feel your chest tighten when you think about rent. It's the amount that means you have optionality, the ability to say no, to walk away, to choose. Most people never write down a number like that. Most people, if they even think about financial security, think about it vaguely, in the language of someday and eventually and if I'm lucky. They don't translate the feeling into actual dollars. They don't make it concrete. But you understand, even at 22, that concrete numbers are different from abstract dreams. Concrete numbers are things you can plan toward. They're destinations you can actually reach. $2,500,000 feels impossible. It also feels absolutely necessary. You stare at it for a long time. Then you close the notebook, put it in a drawer, and get to work finding a job, any job that will keep the lights on for the next 11 days and beyond. Chapter 2. The runway. The job you find is not your dream. This is important to understand from the start. It's not a career. It's not something you'll tell people about at parties or something that aligns with your passions or your skills or what you thought you'd be doing at 22. It's a position as a data entry coordinator at a mid-sized insurance brokerage, which means 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, converting handwritten forms into spreadsheet entries. It's the kind of job that most people use as a stepping stone before something better. You use it differently. You use it as a runway. The difference is important. A stepping stone is something you're eager to leave, something you resent, something you talk about negatively in interviews when you're justifying why you need to move on. A runway is something you respect, something you show up for early and leave late from, something you secretly need. A runway job is one that, 1, pays reliably. You know exactly when the paycheck arrives. You know exactly how much it will be. There are no surprises, which means no chaos, which means you can plan. 2, doesn't consume your mental energy outside of work hours. You leave at 5 p.m. and your brain can be somewhere else. You're not thinking about the job at dinner. You're not waking up at 3 a.m. worried about decisions you have to make. 3, doesn't require you to move frequently. You need stability. You need to be able to build routines and execute plans. A job that's secure for at least a few years is a job that gives you a foundation. 4, provides benefits that you can't easily replicate. Health insurance, especially. Dental, vision, maybe a retirement match if you're lucky. These things have real value, and they're things you can't easily replace with your own money. 5, pays enough to survive on with a small margin left over. Not luxury, not even comfort. Just a small amount of breathing room, enough that if you're disciplined, you can build something. The insurance job hits all 5 criteria. The salary is $42,000 per year. This is not a lot of money. In many parts of the country, it's barely enough to qualify for certain apartments. It's low enough that you will never feel rich. It's high enough that you won't starve. The benefits package is basic but functional. The boss is the kind of person who doesn't micromanage, which means you can show up, do the work, and exist outside of it. The position is not going anywhere. Insurance is one of the most stable industries in the economy. People die. People crash cars. People burn down houses. The forms keep coming forever. You get hired on a Thursday, your first paycheck arrives 2 weeks later, you sit in your apartment and calculate what this means. $42,000 per year, minus income tax, roughly 12% for your bracket, $36,960, minus Social Security and Medicare, 7.65%, $38,800. Wait, that math doesn't work. Let me recalculate. Okay, so $42,000 minus 19.65% in taxes and payroll deductions equals $33,723 per year, divided by 12 months, $2,810 per month. This is your actual take-home pay. This is the money that exists in the real world, not the theoretical world of gross income. This is what you will live on. Now comes the part that most people find paralyzing. You list out every single expense you can identify. You don't estimate. You look at your last month of life and you document what you actually spent, because money that disappears without accounting for it is money that might as well not exist. Rent, $1,300. This is non-negotiable. You could find a cheaper place, sure, but this apartment is in a neighborhood where you feel safe. That's worth something. Besides, moving costs money you don't have. Groceries, $350. You go to the store and look at prices. You're not eating ramen exclusively. That's not sustainable. You'd get sick, and medical bills would destroy you. But you're buying store brands. You're buying rice and beans and eggs and cheap vegetables. You're not buying anything pre-made. You're cooking everything yourself. Utilities? $150. Electric, water, internet. The internet is essential for job searching and building your exit strategy, so it's not negotiable. You keep the apartment cool in summer and wear sweaters in winter. Transportation? $250. You have a car, a 2008 Honda Civic that's paid off, which is the only reason you're not completely underwater. But cars cost money. Gas, insurance, maintenance. You budget for it monthly, knowing that some months you'll spend $50 and some months you'll need $500 for unexpected repairs. Phone, $80. A basic cell phone plan? Essential. Health insurance copay, $150. You have the cheapest health insurance plan your employer offers. It has a high deductible, $3,000, and it sucks, but it's better than nothing. You're not planning on getting sick, but you allocate money for this anyway because statistics are real and bodies fail. Emergency fund contribution, $200. This is the budget category that most people skip, which is exactly why most people are constantly in crisis. You're allocating money for things that will go wrong because things will definitely go wrong. Car repair, medical bill, phone breaks, friend needs a loan, Christmas dinner. You don't know what it will be, but you know it will be something. Total committed expenses, $2,480. This leaves you with exactly $330 per month in actual discretionary income. $330 is not a lot. It's roughly $10 per day. It's the difference between surviving and having a margin. Most people your age spend this on coffee, on takeout, on streaming services they forgot they subscribed to, on impulse purchases that feel harmless at the time. You stare at this number for a long time, and then you make a decision that changes everything. You move $250 of that $330 directly to an investment account before it can become a problem. This is the moment. Not because $250 is a large amount, it's not. It's tiny. It's irrelevant in the short term. Most wealthy people would laugh at someone investing $250 a month, but this is the moment where you do something that almost nobody your age does. You treat your future self with the same seriousness that you treat your landlord. You pay your future self first, and you pay them automatically, and you never, ever miss the payment. The remaining $80 goes into a high-yield savings account marked emergency. This is locked, out of sight. You don't touch it unless something actually breaks. The rest, if there is a rest, buys groceries when you're short that week, or repairs your shoes when they fall apart, or allows you to occasionally exist in the world like a normal human being instead of a ghost counting pennies. The investment account you open is not complicated. You don't buy individual stocks. You don't try to beat the market. You don't research different trading strategies or watch YouTube videos about options trading or any of the other things that most people do when they're trying to get rich fast. You simply open a brokerage account and you buy shares of a total market index fund specifically, a fund that tracks the S&P 500. The expense ratio is 0.03%. The fund is called VOO or VTI or SPY, depending on which brokerage you use. What they all do is the same. They give you a small piece of the entire American economy. Boring, effective, proven. Month 1, you deposit $250. Your brokerage account now shows a balance of $250. Month 2, you deposit another $250. The first $250 has grown slightly, maybe to $252, depending on market movements. Your balance now shows $502. You're not getting rich yet. The growth is invisible. The compound interest hasn't kicked in because you don't have enough capital for the math to work in your favor. But you're doing the thing. You're showing up. You're building the wall that will eventually protect you. This is when you discover something important. Most people cannot tolerate doing something that shows no obvious results. They want immediate feedback. They want to see the progress. When nothing changes for weeks and weeks, they stop. They take the money back out. They spend it. They convince themselves that this whole plan was stupid anyway, that they're making no progress, that they should just live their life. You don't do that. You don't have the luxury of that kind of despair. Rent is due in 11 days, and it will be due again 30 days after that, and 30 days after that. The future is not optional. The future is a fixed point you're moving toward, whether you plan for it or not. So you keep stacking. One transfer, one paycheck, one brick at a time. Quiet, relentless, invisible. This is your runway. You have a job, you have a plan, you have a number to hit. Everything else is just execution. Number, Part 2, the compound effect. Chapter 3, the secret that everyone knows. There's a famous quote that gets attributed to Einstein, probably incorrectly, about compound interest being the eighth wonder of the world. You encounter this quote for the first time while reading a personal finance book that you checked out from the library free, because you're now the kind of person who uses the library like it's a bar, and everyone who works there is your bartender. The quote goes something like, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." You read this, and something clicks. Compound interest isn't a mysterious financial instrument that only rich people can access. It's just math. It's just time. It's just the fact that money can make money, and that money can then make more money, and that if you let this process continue long enough, you end up with something that looks impossible. You pull up a compound interest calculator online, and you start plugging in numbers. It's addictive. You change one variable and watch the outcome shift. If you invest $250 per month starting at age 22, at age 32, 10 years, $43,000. At age 4220 years, $130,000. At age 5230 years, $306,000. At age 6240 years, $655,000. The numbers grow slowly at first, then faster, then exponentially. But here's the part that really gets you. If you wait and start the same investment at age 32 instead of 22, from age 32 to 42, 10 years, $43,000. From age 42 to 52, 20 years, $130,000. From age 52 to 6230 years, $306,000. Wait, the numbers are the same because you're comparing the same time periods. Let me recalculate. If you start at 32 and invest the same $250 per month for 30 years, age 32 to 62, and the returns are the same, 7% annually, you'd have roughly $306,000 at age 62. But if you'd started at 22, you'd have $655,000 at age 62. The difference is $349,000. You would deposit the exact same amount of money. You would invest for the exact same time period, but by starting 10 years later, you'd have $349,000 less. Just for waiting, just for delaying. The opportunity cost of a 10-year delay is nearly $350,000. This is the secret that's not really secret. Everyone who's ever read a personal finance book knows this intellectually. But knowing it and feeling it are different things. When you feel it, when you really understand that every year of delay costs you a future year of wealth, something changes. The runway job doesn't feel like a punishment anymore. It feels like a gift. You're reading everything you can find about this. Library books, blogs, YouTube videos, podcasts while you're driving to work or making dinner. You're building a mental model of how money actually works as opposed to how money is portrayed in culture and media. What you're learning is this. The rich have two things that poor people don't. One, time, and they don't spend it all working. They spend it thinking, planning, building systems that work for them while they sleep. Two, capital, money that works for them instead of their work being done for money. Starting with neither is the hardest position to be in. But starting at 22 with none is better than starting at 40 with none, because you have decades of time left. That's actually your only real advantage, the only advantage you need. Every dollar you invest now is a worker that will work for you for the next 40 years. It will earn returns. Those returns will earn returns. By the time you're 62, a single dollar invested now will have turned into maybe $4, just sitting there, doing nothing except existing in a diversified portfolio. A single dollar, 40 years. $4. Compound interest isn't magic. It's just what happens when you add time to mathematics. You become obsessed with this idea. You calculate what it would look like if you increased your investment amount. What if instead of $250, you could invest $300, then $400? What if you could get your savings rate up to 30% of your income? You start looking at your budget more carefully. Are there places where you're spending money unnecessarily? Things you could cut? The truth is, there aren't many. You're already living like a monk, but there are small things. You're spending $80 on a cell phone plan? Could you get that down to $50? You're spending $150 on utilities. Could you keep the apartment a few degrees colder in winter? You're spending $200 on the emergency fund. Could you get by with $150, at least for a few months? You make small adjustments. You downgrade your phone plan. You wear sweaters. You reduce the emergency fund contribution temporarily. Your monthly investment amount goes from $250 to $320.